We at Time Shifters hope that you enjoyed this rare and infamous moment that combines a first-rate disaster with genuine historical significance. But now it's time to take a deep breath as we prepare to temporarily reset you. Get your cars to Mars.
Everyone, I am Christopher, and I want to welcome you to the Time Shifters podcast. In this show, Tom and I discuss and review film and television, primarily in the sci-fi, fantasy, and horror genres. And we are thrilled when we hear from our listeners, and you have many ways for you to contact us. You can send an email to timeshifterspodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the link in the show notes to find all our social media accounts, or you can visit timeshifterspodcast.com to leave comments or use the Contact Us form found at the top of the page. Now let's get Tom in on the fun and start the show. Tom, how the heck have you been?
I'm a little cold.
Oh, yeah, I am frozen. I tell you what, and having the recording studio here in the basement is not the best place to be right now.
Not to make light of the challenges currently on the West Coast, but the U.S. is starting to look a little like the old McDLT.
Hot side hot, cold side cold?
Yeah.
Nope, understood. No, it is very cold. We got single digits around us right now.
Ooh. We've only managed the teens.
Yeah, and then with the wind chills, that takes us under. So you'll be happy to know I did watch Man from Earth since our last recording. You mentioned it, I believe, the last time we spoke.
Yes, no, I was super excited to have you see that.
It was very good storytelling.
It was. I mean, it literally is storytelling.
Yeah, it is a group of people in a room.
Yeah.
And talking.
Yeah.
And some great dialogue, some great discussion, some great arguments back and forth, trying to convince everyone he's 14,000 years old. Everyone's like, I can't say you're not.
Right. Despite the incredible thought that could be real. But everything they question him on, they couldn't stop. And his answers... And that's what I loved about it, is it's so well written, because it didn't try to over dramatize it or show him back in the past or anything like that. It was just, his answers were perfect for what you would expect, what might actually be if a man actually lived that long. That whole notion, just because you're alive that long doesn't mean you know everything that ever happened on Earth from every aspect it ever happened.
I really like that he even admitted, like, look, I don't remember everything. I don't know exactly when this stuff was. I just know what was going on at the time. So I just, through history books, figured out, okay, that must have been this century.
Yeah. And the right out of the gate stuff. If he's 14,000 years old, they kept asking him, so where are you from? And he's like, I don't know how to answer that, because what landmarks were there? Like today, we have cities, we have boundaries and such. I was born in a valley. When I had my core group until it was obvious that I was not the same as everyone else. And then I began wandering, and I'm like, what do you have to go on?
I started walking in the direction of the rising sun.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, like he couldn't necessarily pin down which continent he started on. And when you really think about how they laid out that story, you're like, no, I can't refute any of that.
Right. Yeah, he can't prove it, and they can't disprove it. It was really good, and I like the mix of people in the cast. First of all, also great cast,
fantastic cast.
You got Tony Todd.
Tony Todd, yeah,
the late great Tony Todd. William Catt was in it. John Billingsley.
Yes,
is that the correct name?
Yes.
Phlox from Enterprise.
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic cast. And the characters, especially when you had the one that was very religious.
Very, yes.
and the Bible and the events in the Bible come up in the discussion.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she will not hear any of it. And he's even like, I'm not saying you're wrong.
What I loved too when they got into the religious overtones of it, one, it was elegant the way that they laid it out. Like the notion of, I'm not going to give anything away, but who he was in that and how it got misinterpreted feels so much like how that's probably actually happened. It not with a 14,000-year-old guy necessarily, but the notion that somebody had some good ideas and it's been perverted in a way over a long period of time. And that's how we get to where we are now. And I'm like, oh my God. And what was even best about that, yes, the hardcore religious woman, he cracked her. She believed right up until a moment that happened where she's let off the hook, kind of. And that, I loved every minute of that. And like, I've never seen a movie with so little going on that didn't have me it had me fully entrenched the whole time.
Yeah, no, it was. Thank you very much for bringing it back up. Because like I said, I think I remember hearing about it back in, 2007, I think, when it came out. And it just fell off my radar. And
Sure.
I'm very thankful for you to kind of bring it back to the forefront. And I'm glad I got a chance to watch it. As far as I know, folks, at the time of recording, it's still available on Amazon Prime.
Yes. It still
as is the sequel, Man from Earth, Halocene Man, I think it's called.
Something like that.
My wife and I did watch that as well. Not as engaging as the first film, in our opinion. But if you want to check it out, there was talk, apparently, amongst the filmmakers and the cast of doing a series of films.
Really?
But whether or not that happens, because I think Halocene Man is several years old now at this point, and
Yeah, I think that's from like what the teens.
right, yeah, it was almost, I think, 10 years or so from the time of the Man from Earth.
Yeah.
Was so it's already been another 10 years. I don't know if they'll continue the series. Be interesting if they did.
Sure. Don't know how. But yeah, and I still need to get to the sequel. It's just I don't want the sequel to taint the experience I had out of the first one, because
I think it'll
amazing.
I think it'll make you appreciate the first one.
Yeah.
And it'll just be one of those cases where the filmmakers wanted to keep doing something and they had to make concessions to do so. But as long as it's available on Prime, it's not going to cost you anything to check it out, then yeah, maybe go ahead and give it a watch.
No, I hope to. Well, got a nice 3-day weekend coming up.
Yeah, perfect. I've only watched like one other thing that could even be close to sort of related to the show.
Yeah.
And it was only because I've always been curious about it, even though I knew it was fairly ridiculous. But again, it was available on Prime.
Yeah.
I watched Raise the Titanic from 1980.
Okay. It's a random one.
It is very random. I don't know why. It's just a film that I remember from my childhood, from when it came out.
Yeah.
And the idea of it, and someone telling me, yeah, they use giant balloons or something like that to raise it. And of course, in my head, I have like blimps or something hanging over the top of the Titanic or whatever. It is definitely a movie where science is kind of thrown out of the portals pretty quick.
Sure.
But it is not as bad and corny as I was expecting it to be.
That's good.
Yeah. If you can forgive the fact that none of the science works whatsoever, the MacGuffin that is used to even encourage someone to go and look for the Titanic is... You could have easily just come up with some story about an explorer who finds the Titanic. You didn't have to have this political drama as well.
Wait,
but
it doesn't involve a giant blue diamond? That might be it?
no, it does not. Good model work, kind of impressive model work. Didn't get the actual destruction of the Titanic rate. Apparently, they've got the depth of which the Titanic was found right within like a couple 100 feet.
Wow. Okay.
So
Considering we didn't really know where it was at the time.
Right. I mean, it was almost a decade before it was actually discovered after this film was made. So, but that is really all I've been doing. I've just been plugging away, watching a little bit of this and a little bit of that as far as the Babylon 5 rewatch a little bit. I haven't watched as much Farscape. Yeah, I think I've kind of leaned more into watching Babylon 5 because that's on Prime, so I figure...
Oh, is it on Prime? I actually didn't know it.
It is back on Prime. It keeps coming and going, and so I figured I'd try to watch as much as I can on Prime while it's still available, whereas Farscape I have at my disposal, so I can watch that anytime.
Sure. I last tried Babylon 5 while it was on HBO Max, when it was HBO Max, and they dropped it after a while, and I never got to finish, so I may have to dig into that.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the last time I tried to get into it as well, and then the same thing happened. It was there, and then I went to go watch one, and it wasn't.
Right, yeah. And I was just getting into the Shadow War.
Yeah, that's about where I am now in the second season, where the shadows are coming out, and it says something about Straczynski's writing as far as creating a character, because even though I know what happens with Londo, watching it unfold all over again, it still breaks my damn heart.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, because Londo really was that like when you first get introduced to him, he's kind of that sleeper character. You're like, oh, this is just going to be kind of the comic relief guy. And as they evolve him, you're like, oh, you get really emotionally attached to him. And then you watch his fall, and it's just...
Yeah. I think he is my favorite character. Certainly it's my favorite story arc. And probably closely followed by Jakar.
Yeah, Jakar actually was my favorite. But part of that, what made him my favorite, is that playoff with
Londo. Right.
Yeah. and the empathy that Jakar ends up feeling for Londo is just amazing. Because you get, and that's, I think, the saving grace for Babylon 5. There are lots of camps that hate Babylon 5 as much as love it. But what makes it the saving grace is, despite all the human characters who are supposed to be driving the story, it's really the Jakar and Londo story that's really compelling, because you see two people who are on different sides of things. Like Jakar's the ultra violent, very angry one at the beginning, and Londo's kind of your go
party.
Yeah, he's your party. He's your comical guy, and you watch them crisscross and change roles entirely and go completely in different extremes. And Jakar only becomes a stronger, more wholesome character, going through all of the trials and tribulations that he does, and he becomes stronger for it, and Londo just falls apart. And it's such a good watch.
I was commenting on threads on a discussion about Babylon 5, and I was mentioning that, Londo is my favorite, followed by Jakar, and then I watched an episode that Veer had a really great scene, and I had to comment again. I was like, just saw this scene, and I don't know, him and Jakar are really close in that second place now. That's another character that it's so surprising that he does have his arc.
Yes.
And he goes from the bubbling assistant to He goes from the bumbling assistant to he attempts to be the sort of conscience of Londo when Londo's takes a break.
Yeah.
And he finds a lot of strength that wasn't there when he's first introduced.
Yeah, and then just kind of watch him grow into essentially the saving grace for their species is just amazing, too. 'Cause, again, coming from such humble, silly start.
And it's also a little sad watching the show now, and you sit there and you're watching the credits, and it's hard not to just. It's a little sad because there's so many that aren't with us anymore.
I know, yeah.
I think more have left us than remain.
Yes, no. Which is really troubling because, I mean, they were what? They were young in their 90s, and it's not that much further along. Mm-hmm. The Star Trek crew started before they did, the Next Gen crew, and they're still all hanging out with us.
Yeah, no, they've all tragically died very young.
Yes.
All in the 60s and 70s. I don't know if any of them have hit 80s.
Some of them didn't make it to their 60s.
No, so it's very, very unfortunate.
It's a shame to see them go, which means they can't be a part of any trying to do more, like when they did the animated movie.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. I never got the chance to watch that.
You never did?
No, I forgot all about that.
No, it was entertaining, and it was just missing a little something because it's been so long and all.
I'll have to try to get a hold of it and
it's an
hang on to
anthology
it.
piece, so there's a couple of disparate stories. They all take place at different times in there.
Okay, I'll have to try to get a hold of it and then maybe save it for when I finish my rewatch of the series.
Now, the question is, what do you define as the finish of the rewatch of the series? The Prime series? Try to get into the movies, assuming they're available to even watch. And then there's the spin-off series.
Yeah, I'd probably just skip Crusade.
Yeah, I don't even remember having finished that series in the first place, so...
I don't know if I did or if it just ended.
Well, it had the same problem that I was having with things like DS9 and Voyager at the time, because they're in syndication. Their schedule would move around so much that you'd get too many breaks in the story, and in the good old days when you had to fire up the VCR to record any of that. If you missed it, you missed it.
Yep. So what have you been up to?
Work is back in full swing since the holiday break, and now we're already back into the semester, so it's really full swing. I had my son, when we get to the movie of the evening, I had my son watch that with me too, so that was interesting to do. But we actually dug into, I don't know why I was moved to do it, but I had gotten him into the at least the first two Kingsman movies.
Oh, fun.
And it had been a minute since I had seen those, and I just remember them being so much fun, and they really kind of were. The look on his face alone from the first one when they start blowing up people's heads, and it's just this Technicolor little smoke thing that they do on them, and it's done to the really weird it's the song you play at graduation. And they're pomp and circumstance.
Pomp and circumstance.
Yeah, pomp and circumstance. I knew I'd get it eventually, but yeah, when they're playing to that, the look on his face when he saw that going off was just amazing. Because at 15 now, it's not like any of this is traumatizing, but he was like, I was not expecting that. Yeah, we'll have to get in. We did the first two, and then we'll have to get into. There's the prequel, which is not great.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, there's one called The King's Man.
Right. No, I haven't seen it.
And it's got Ray Fiennes in the lead role, but then Matthew Vaughn, the director of those movies, he's done one this past year called Argyle, which is based off of a book series.
Didn't see that one yet.
I had a lot of fun with that, but because it's Matthew Vaughn, he still finds a way to have a little Kingsman tie-in with the film, and I'm like, that's kind of fun. So we'll probably revisit those the next time he's with me to hang out and watch movies.
Cool.
Yep.
Along the same line, have you seen Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
Oh, you mean the movie remake, the one with Henry Cavill?
Henry Cavill, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that years ago, but I haven't revisited that in a while.
I think it fit pretty well in that genre. You know, if you're watching Kingsman and the like. Yeah,
no, because I've kind of been in a action adventure spy kind of mood as of late.
I actually enjoyed Man from U.N.C.L.E. I was expecting maybe to kind of hate it.
Well, yeah, because you're probably a little more tied to the original material.
I've not seen it all or a lot, but I've seen enough.
Yeah.
And so I was like, kind of expecting to see this. Oh, this is going to be like the Avengers with Sean Connery and Uma Thurman.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yes, and which I absolutely hated because I am a fan of the '60s, source material. So, but no, I Man from U.N.C.L.E., I thought, you know what, it was enough to make it its own thing, but still kind of had a little touch points into the series that were a little bit of fan service, built into it. And I thought it wasn't a great film, but it was a fun, kind of turn your brain off and enjoy the action.
Yeah, no, and that's what I remember from it. And since I don't have any relationship to the source material, I got to enjoy it just for what it was. So I might need to revisit that one.
Yeah, I was, after watching the film, I was disappointed that it didn't do better, that we couldn't get a sequel.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen a continuation with Henry Cavill.
Yeah. I find more and more I just enjoy him. I was watching a bit of the Witcher series, and he was just amazing in it, so a lot of fun. But where my head's at now, especially with the long weekend coming up, is finally, after 3 years, the second season of a show called Severance is coming up, and I'm going to rewatch the entire first season because it's been 3 years. But it was all the talk in the office right now, is everybody's kind of excited for that to come up. And I need to rewatch it because people are talking about details from season 1 that I'm like, I don't know that I remember that. And I'm going to kind of need this information going into the next one. Well, and I think since we were talking about the Reacher series in the last show and how I became enamored with that, because it's based off of a book series that's also not told in any particular order, and each thing is its own thing. It just shares the character, but it's a new experience for that character. Each season, as Reacher, that they're going to get their third season coming out next month, and it's one of those, you don't have to go see prior seasons. They're their own self-contained entity, and that's kind of cool.
I think between this recording and our next recording, Star Trek Section 31 will have premiered.
Yes, no, because that's due out here at the end of the month.
I believe the 24th is when that comes out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm still super hesitant about that one.
I'm not expecting good things, but it's Michelle Yeoh, so I'm gonna watch it.
yeah, but like like I've said on a number of fronts, it just doesn't feel like Starfleet and the Federation do even have a Section 31, let alone let's go ahead and tell an entire story around it.
I'm hopeful that it's going to be one of those films where I look at it and say, yeah, it's not a Star Trek movie, but it's a good action movie.
Yeah.
It's an adventure. It's an adventure film.
And that's kind of all I can ask from it, too. I mean, it doesn't help that this bore out of Discovery, which is still... I still have yet to finish that because I just find it tedious to try to plug into.
Mm-hmm. Don't blame you. I'm amazed that I did.
No. Kudos to you for completion. I have other friends that had gone ahead and slogged through it, and I'm like, every time I turn another episode on, I'm like, I can't. This is not right. It doesn't feel good. It's like swallowing a horse pill. Like, I know it's Star Trek and I should like it, but I don't.
All right. Well, if that is about it, I think we should probably jump into the film du jour. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. We'll take a break. We'll listen to a promo from their podcast, and then we will talk about 2000's Mission to Mars.
Welcome to Film Gazers, a podcast focusing on the science fiction, horror, fantasy trinity, and 20th century entertainment. I'm Steph.
I'm Jess. We're cousins/besties. Join us as we reminisce, discuss, and review films from our childhood.
Follow on Instagram at Film Gazers and listen to the show wherever you like to get your podcasts.
Later, taters.
This is a truly anomalous formation. It's unlike anything that we've seen so far. We're trying not to go too nuts up here, but we think there's a good chance that this could be water. Of course, if that's correct, then we may have found the key to permanent human colonization.
Yes. Okay, we're ready to light this candle.
Let's go to Mars. What the hell is that?
No idea, boss.
Prepare to abandon ship.
For centuries, we've searched for the origin of life on Earth. We've been looking on the wrong planet.
Mission to Mars was directed by Brian De Palma and stars Gary Sinise, Tim Robbins, Don Cheadle, Connie Nielsen, and Jerry O'Connell. In the year 2020, the first manned mission to Mars detects a signal coming from a large mountain and investigates. Scanning it with X-rays, they realize that there appears to be a metallic structure within the mountain. Increasing the X-ray scan, the mountain begins to break apart and a giant weather anomaly forms, killing 3 of the 4 astronauts and revealing that the structure under the mountain is that of a giant face. Back on Earth, a massive power surge is detected on Mars, and after a brief message from the survivor, all communication is lost with Mars 1. A rescue mission is launched, but they have to deal with several disasters of their own, starting with being struck by micrometeoroids as they approach Mars. Narrowly surviving that, undetected fuel leak caused by the meteoroids destroys the ship. Going EVA, they commandeer the orbiting supply ship from the first mission, but they do so at the cost of one of their lives. Finally making it to the surface, they reunite with the survivor of Mars 1. Together, they investigate the mysterious face and the signal, and they learn truths about the solar system that will reshape man's understanding of the universe and themselves. The filmmakers created the Martian landscape in a massive sand pit near Vancouver. It was one of the biggest sets ever constructed, around 2 million square feet, and over 14,000 gallons of paint was used to spray the soil Mars red.
Wow.
NASA cooperated with the production team, and the organization's most up-to-date plans on a Mars mission was shared with them to most accurately simulate a potential manned mission, and real-life astronaut Story Musgrave appears in the film as a Capcom operator at Mars Mission Control. Oh. This was the first time I have watched this film since we went and saw it in the theater back in 2000.
Yeah.
Remembered bits and pieces of it. I didn't remember the whole thing. I don't know. I had the feeling that I kind of liked it back in 2000.
Yeah.
I think I've probably found more problems with it watching it now than I might have then.
Oh, yeah. No, here's where I'm at with this. I actually still enjoyed it. It is dramatically flawed. But yeah, I'm picking up on more flaws than I remember when I was in the theater. But I am shocked at how much of this film I actually did remember. There are key scenes that stick out to me, whether or not I'm seeing it or not. Like the Tim Robbins taking his helmet off to keep his wife from overextending herself. I remember that distinctly.
Yes. No, that's a very, very memorable moment. And of course, the weirdest of things, I mentioned it to you on the last recording, but I don't know if it actually made it on the last recording. Tim Robbins and his Corvette.
Yeah.
In 2020, everyone's driving electric vehicles apparently, and he's got his Corvette, and his friends are like, shouldn't you donate this to a museum or something? And his line, carbon combustion, boys, accept no substitutes.
Yeah.
Which is a line I still use. I've used it on my wife who drives a Prius.
Well, the thing I was marveling at too, and that I was poking fun of while I was watching with my son, is when Gary Sinise's character pulls up late to the cookout, and he's in this Isuzu thing, and I'm like, wow, there's a defunct car company.
Yeah, that didn't last too well, or that didn't hold up terribly well.
I remember it making it past the teens.
That was an Isuzu Via Cross.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't even know what the thing was called.
It was a very limited run production vehicle. The convertible model never made it to the States.
Yeah.
I did read a little bit about this. Only about 5,000 of these things were even made.
Yeah.
But yes, that's what they used for this, and then they added in the weird engine noise or something to make it seem futuristic.
Yeah, I think it was intended to be all electric or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the future that they paint with this, aluminum cans are no longer a thing.
Right.
Everyone's walking around with beer in a, it looks like one of those soy milk lunch container things.
Yep.
I got a kick out of that. Yes, apparently the use of electric vehicles everywhere. What surprised me at this rewatch is how abbreviated the events, or at least the time in between events, were.
Right.
Here's the last night before everyone goes on their mission. And now, a year later or whatever, 6 months later, they're in their mission. Like, oh, okay. And then there's disaster in their mission. And then, well, we have to launch a rescue. Months later, Like, wow.
The debate didn't last long. The notion that it would be one person's role to say yay or nay to whether or not we launch an entire other spacecraft to go find one person. And while, sure, everyone would like to think we would try, it's not super likely. To which it even played out. You risked an entire other crew on a lost mission, and the fact that the one guy is mulling it over and like, okay, we'll do it. Like,
yes.
like, not trying to pull the economics of all of that in, but you are committing billions of dollars.
Yeah, where is the congressional hearings?
Right, yeah, no, in fact, Don Cheadle's character would have died several times over in just waiting for Congress to decide whether or not they'd spend the money to do it. Not to mention, this suggested they had a craft waiting.
Yeah, Mars
Really?
2 was just right there in the giant world space station.
And I would love to see us so committed to space exploration that these things are just waiting in the wings. That the fact that we got a crew to Mars, successfully landed on it, and carrying out their mission would suggest maybe we're going to do more. But still, the notion that they had the ship just ready to go. Despite the fact that they even, like, he was only there months, wasn't he? Like, maybe a year. He was, like, there a year.
I think that's about right.
I remember him being there about a year, but still, that's an insanely fast turnaround. Because it's not just, that's taking into account how long it might take to get to Mars, plus the fact, did you have to build the thing to begin with?
Got a kick out of the World Space Station. I guess I could see them trying to project the International Space Station. I think had become a thing.
Yeah.
Like within a couple years of this film being made.
Yeah.
So I think they were definitely. Again, it almost felt like one of those films from the 50s.
Yeah.
Where they had such high hopes and just assumed we would just go, yes, space!
And I think this is why I still put it in a category of, I like it. As flawed as it is, this is a dramatically hopeful film.
That's the key word right there. It is a very hopeful film.
Yeah, and it even suggests that even in the trials and tribulations, should we even run into... This was a one where running into the alien influence that might be on Mars wasn't a bad thing. It went wrong the first time because they didn't understand what they were doing. But we actually used intelligence to kind of figure out a problem. And when we solved the problem, it's all for our benefit. As goofy as the actual ending is.
My son pointed it out as the first attempt ends in the death of 3 people.
Right.
Because, they didn't answer the question correctly. My son was like, couldn't they have just not opened the door? Did they really have to do the whole windworm and throwing rocks around?
That is a fair point.
I'm not sure I want to go live with these beings if this is how callous they are with people that get the question wrong.
And here's the thing in all of this. This is what makes it a flawed film. That piece does not fit into the story they were trying to tell. However, if all it did is just not do anything, how exciting would the film be to just sit there and watch the 4 people that were already there just keep trying? Which is exactly how it actually probably would have gone if this was a real thing. You're right. What would be the purpose of reacting to a bad signal. I mean, you would think a race this intelligent also might figure a stray signal might even come across to this thing. We don't need our mountain to just go off just because. And I don't even think... The one thing I did kind of care for in all this is the mountain wasn't supposed to be there. They were abandoning their planet. The face and the residual was there. They weren't necessarily anticipating centuries of dust, dirt, and asteroids that have collided with the planet to cover the thing up and create this. So Lord only knows what that thing was supposed to do without all the dirt on top.
Yeah, oh, good point. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's
I don't know
point.
that the film creators actually even thought of any of that, but seriously...
Oh, no, absolutely not.
They explained that there's no reason why they would have expected all of this stuff to be there. So what would that have done if the dirt wasn't there?
Right. That's another thing this film does is it taps into some of the fervor of the time, some of the fervor of Mars at the time with the idea of the face on Mars.
Yes, no. That was part of what I was discussing with my son at the time, because after we covered in our prior episodes about the old canals, the thought of the canals, and then when in like the 90s there was that image on Mars that was shadows and it looked like a face. That's what birthed this film.
Yes, no, absolutely, and I think that's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of pulls into what we talked about in our first episode about our sort of fascination with the red planet, mm-hmm. Because of these little, what is this? What could it mean? And it's just a rock. Sometimes a rock is just a rock.
True, but I'm surprised we haven't birthed another one yet, because after we've gotten all the telemetry back from the various rovers and all that, I remember there was distinctly some fuss over one of the photos that there looked like there was a door in the side. And I remember that photo. It's not, but when that came out, I'm surprised that didn't pique somebody's curiosity. Ooh, I can turn this into a story.
We could be completely discounting films out of The Asylum or something.
Well. Oh no, we discounted Asylum. I think they discount themselves at times.
I'm just saying there could easily be a low budget Mars themed film.
That's fair. I own that I don't know what every film in the universe is. So yes, if there is one out there, I tell you what, if you've heard of one, please pass it our way. We would love to explore that.
It's just, it does kind of tap into that sort of warm and fuzzy nostalgia feel of that time, mm-hmm. when you had stuff like The Face on Mars and everything. It's a little bit like if someone made a film. It always comes up whenever there's a new year. If there was a film about Y2K, obviously it doesn't hold up. The film doesn't hold up and everything after the fact, but you still gotta go back to that moment.
Yeah.
When you remember all the news stories and all the stickers on all your computer. Oh, make sure you reset your clock. Unplug your computer at midnight. Yeah.
Well, and you really do have to look at this movie a bit through the lens of the time in which we're coming out of one of the longest stretches of peace for our own country in a long time. Everything is going right in the world, more or less. We did get through Y2K and nothing blew up. It's generally a positive feeling moment in time. And then you put that little tinge of, we're in the year 2002, it gets a little extra special something. So this whole feeling that we've gone back to that hopeful space adventure from the 1950s just felt warm and cuddly, even if it's just kind of an okay film.
Do you think maybe that's one of the reasons that we watch the film now and we kind of find things to pick out because we're just a little bit wiser now than we were 25 years ago.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, we have more background. We have more knowledge on Mars, let alone anything else, too. So, but yeah, we're in a little dimmer period of time these days. So it's hard not to let that taint some of what your rose-colored glasses came off and they became a dimmer shade.
My biggest complaint watching the film this time, despite the fact that it's a great cast, I think it's miscast.
Yeah.
I really don't feel like most of the people in this film were really giving it their all. They all kind of seemed like they really didn't know what to do, especially Tim Robbins. I can't think of any other Tim Robbins film that would be considered sci-fi.
Right.
He definitely feels really lost.
Yeah, no, and that's what was funny. Like, he didn't belong there, but the husband-wife component was very endearing. I enjoyed that, but that's not what this was about. So even when you enjoy that part, it doesn't fit. Not entirely. I know what they were going for, but it didn't. You're absolutely right. And I don't even know if it's miscasting so much as I have to put some of this on De Palma and the script writing, because there's lots of just clunky periods of time where there's not really much going on. I know when we get into the reviews, because I read the review, as usual, Roger Ebert picks up on stuff very well. But I picked up on this as well. Like, the thing while I was watching it this past weekend, when they're all in the emergency where the air is escaping from their vessel, everybody's got their suits on. Gary Sinise's suit, his helmet's been cracked, but there is a spare and there is a breather, and he keeps waving it off. Why? Yeah. What was the purpose for that? He put himself in unnecessary danger, literally unnecessarily. They were going to bring him the gear while he was still accomplishing his goal. So why wave it off? No, bring it so that I can do my job more effectively. It didn't make any sense. So they wrote these things in purposely, and they didn't have a point.
Yeah, that entire scene was the weirdest scene because you're supposed to be, like, it's supposed to be tense. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be dramatic. And there didn't feel like there was any urgency at all through the entire scene.
No, I think they were too focused on wanting to kind of keep that illusion of weightlessness. And as far as I know, maybe they did use the vomit comet to do some of this stuff. I didn't look into it. No?
As far as from what I read, it was just wire work.
Okay, so it's wire work, which you can do wire work faster. And honestly, if you're in this big of an emergency, you find a bulkhead and you push off of it at all speed to get to your next destination. You can move pretty quick through space if you do it right.
Yeah. No, the entire scene felt like it was going really slow so they could incorporate their product placement for Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, I called that out pretty quick too. The other thing in all of this, and again, they're trying to create drama where there isn't. Just because you punctured a hole in your spacecraft doesn't. Why does that mean the computer has to now all get all garbled?
Yeah, I don't understand why they needed to
Yeah, those systems didn't get hit.
Yeah, I don't understand why they had the hard boot to the computer, because they took a couple hits from meteoroids. I missed that too.
Yeah, no, they again, it's the whole, they're trying to create tension, but they're going about it all wrong.
And another thing that kind of steals from that moment is the music. The soundtrack in this thing is not good. They have this droning organ music playing repetitively over the entire scene, and they're like, did De Palma just recently see like 2001 or something and just felt like this was his little own version take it slow and have the slow music and like, shouldn't we be like hurrying?
Right. Yeah. No. I got a lot of that out of that, and they're like, yeah, no, but what I think is good or bad, however you feel about it, that scene, as dramatic as it's supposed to be, isn't, and doesn't come off well. But then we go into the next one, when the fuel explodes behind the engine and it takes the engine out, which sends them off course, and they're going to die if they don't come up with a new thing. So as they make that plan to leave the ship to go over to the one that's in orbit, that becomes actually the better scene. That one's a little more thought out. It's got more tension. They're actually trying to take into account some of the physics and all of this stuff. And that's where we get one of our better sequences, which is the whole Tim Robbins thing and his outro on the entire movie. I'm like, I could have just gone and let's just cut to that. Skip the other part.
No, that scene is incredible. And that scene, I think, is pretty amazing because I think it subverts your expectations. Mm-hmm. Because it's Tim Robbins. It's one of the stars of the film. Obviously, he's going to be there till the end.
Right.
They kill him off halfway through. You know, the rescue fails, and that surprises you. In a film that has no surprises anywhere else, no good ones.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the film, that's a big surprise.
No, and I think that's probably why, to this day, that is one of the scenes that I remember the most, is they did it right. And here's the thing. Every time you get one of these, especially when you try to put real science into some of it, as much as you can, with as much as we know, the fact that you're going to go through all of these and the idea that everybody's going to come out unscathed, not super likely. So the fact that they carried through, and with one of the top billing people on the movie, and this is when you kill him, that was amazing. It was great. And like you said, it's the unexpected moment.
I do question whether they still could have figured something out to save him. Couldn't she have jetted just a little closer, enough for it to actually snag him with the cable, gone back as far as she could, had one of the other guys go out a little ways, using the cable again to then pull the... I feel like maybe there was a way they could have saved him.
I think that's what they want you to feel, but then you can also go, he is plummeting toward the atmosphere. At some point, there's a point of no return. We don't know how close he actually is to that, considering he has looked over his shoulder at debris and it's burning up in the atmosphere. So he's not that far away from oblivion anyway.
I'm actually really... I'm glad they didn't, but I'm actually surprised they didn't actually show him start to ignite.
That would have probably been a bridge too far for this particular film. It was bad enough you got to see him freeze out.
And again, very abridged. They get back to the thing and, okay, we've landed.
Yeah, no, we skipped the whole part. Did this actually work? Like that thing, well, it was a cargo thing. What did they call it? Was a replenishment thing. So
yeah, I wasn't even sure.
I'm not sure what its function was or how it was.
No, me either. I maybe was it supposed to? Were they supposed to? Mars One was supposed to launch and then connect to that, and that would be supply them for their return trip.
And you know what? That's actually probably exactly what that was supposed to be. Kind of like when the lunar lander took off, it split off of its propulsion system when it left the moon and reconnected with the orbiter.
But how exactly were they going to get back to Earth when you look at how big of a ship the Mars Rescue was?
Yeah.
How did the guys get to Mars in the first place? How were they going to get back? Where was the fuel and everything to actually get them back to Earth?
Yeah, no, you're not supposed to think about that.
All right, sorry. Okay, we'll just ignore that.
But no, I was even on the drive home tonight. I was thinking about it. I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about it. I was foregoing the fuel thing, which you're absolutely right. And since they jettisoned everything out of that thing, they probably don't have enough. But the sheer size of the craft that would have left there, you were supposed to have 4. You at least have 3 leaving. There's not a whole lot of moving around space in there, let alone, I don't know about bathroom. I don't know about eating, any of that stuff. So I'm like, and they've got, at least according to this version of the story, at least months. It's actually longer. But it's going to take them at least, from this movie's perspective, 6 months or more to get back. All 3 of them going to sit in that tin can for 6 months?
Yeah, I don't feel like the danger's over for anybody in this film. The film ends with them taking off from Mars, and happy ending. Is it? I don't know. Gary Sinise's character going to go live with the Martians. Happy ending. I don't know. Is it? I've seen The Twilight Zone. That guy's gonna end up in a zoo.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention, I love that of all the things that had to happen, their ship takes off, and so does the alien spacecraft, and it happens to like fly by feet from the thing. I'm like, all right, it's just going to end badly for everybody right now.
Oh, it would have been hilarious if it dinged them, sends them plummeting back to Mars.
And then that's the sequel, is the next rescue mission.
We did get a little bit of social media.
Yep.
On the Discord server, Matt chimes in that it's been years since I've rewatched this, but one part really stuck with me. The scene where they have to abandon ship in space and Tim Robbins' character ends up falling into the Mars atmosphere.
Yeah.
When Connie Nielsen's character attempts to save him and we're just watching the cable slowly make its way only to fall a few feet short. It's a really well-crafted, intense scene that shows in space close isn't enough. I can't remember if the rest of the movie holds up like that part, but damn, that moment is really good. Yeah, and I would say no. The rest of the film doesn't hold up to that.
That's pretty much the climax of everything.
And the only other bit I got on my own personal Facebook, Barry Worth said he's looking forward to listening. He says, I'm double dipping and doing the year 2000 Mars movie double feature. De Palma's film, then Red Planet.
Nice.
And I mentioned that one is on our list too, and I think I can go ahead and just tell everyone that we have made a decision that we are too going to do the twofer. So the next time we talk about a Mars movie, we will discuss Red Planet as well. But what did the critics have to say on this one?
It's not going to be surprising that it's not fantastic. But I'll start with Roger Ebert, who actually didn't rate it terrible, but also doesn't like it. And I've broken up his review. His review is a little all over the map, but he has some interesting things to say. So to start, he says, Mission to Mars is smarter and more original, and he is referring to a prior review he did for the movie Pitch Black that came out like weeks before this. It contains some ideas. It also has its flaws. So he goes on to say, those stretches on autopilot surround 3 sequences of real vision, awakening the sense of wonder that is the goal of popular science fiction. And I agree. They had some nuggets of goodness. Continuing, I like a little science in science fiction, and this film has a little. The emphasis is on little. However, and its animated recreation of the evolution of species lost me when the dinosaurs evolved into bisons. And besides, how would the makers of that animation know the outcome of the process? They left the the galaxy.
Oh, good point.
So we get this whole PowerPoint presentation from the aliens. They would have no way of knowing that actually happened.
Well, maybe the face has been monitoring things.
Sure, and it's been rewriting that PowerPoint presentation. Oh,
if it can make a giant sandworm.
Very true, very true. And then finally, I took from him, I can't recommend Mission to Mars. It misses too many of its marks, but it has extraordinary things in it. It's as if the director, the gifted Brian De Palma, rises to the occasion, but the screenplay gives him nothing much to do in between them. It was old Howard Hawks who supplied this definition of a good movie. 3 great scenes, no bad scenes. Mission to Mars only gets the first part right. That's why I had to read as much of that, because he was just amazing all over the place on this one. And then pulling from film.com, Robert Horton wrote, for a good 40 minutes or so in the middle of this movie, De Palma is in his element. Meaning the rest is garbage.
Yeah, all right.
Chicago Reader, Jonathan Rosenbaum. There are a few pretty good design effects en route, but not enough to compensate for all the embarrassments. And at the bottom of the pile, LA Weekly, Manola Daguerres. Otherwise fine actors such as Don Cheadle and Gary Sinise spend nearly 2 hours of the film time standing around like department store dummies mouthing dialogue so wooden it's petrified. And that's, I think, where you get your casting comment. I don't even know if it's the wrong cast for the movie. It just didn't give them anything to really sink their teeth into on this.
Maybe. I just feel like there was, especially, like I said, with Tim Robbins, it really stood out to me is that it just looked like he was uncomfortable. He didn't really get what he was supposed to do or what. He just looked out of place.
He did, yeah. Well, and as goofy as the party scene at the beginning kind of is, you get the sense that we're trying to set up more of an emotional film than we got. Then we sunk into the science part, which wasn't bad, but we kind of lingered there too much and forgot to tell a story.
We establish in the first few minutes of the film that Gary Sinise's character has effectively nothing. His wife has passed.
Right.
They were going to be on Mars 1, and now they weren't. And everyone else is there. His friends are all leaving him. He's got nothing. And then we completely forget about that until the last 5 minutes of the film.
Right. Other than a touching video sequence that we get in the middle just before we puncture holes in the ship. Yeah, so, again, I still give it enough that I kind of like it, but yeah, it's not great.
It's not unwatchable.
No,
it's just, it is not the film you're going to recommend. It's not the, I'm kind of in the mood for a Marsy sci-fi film. Not this one. It's not going to happen.
No, there are more. There are better.
Right. I even think Brian De Palma, I think, for the most part, decided, screw Hollywood. I don't know if he's done an actual big Hollywood picture since this one. He's done some films, but I think he's gone pretty much independent.
Yeah, I think you might be right there. Going through his filmography, they all get very specific. I think I've even seen one that followed later that would have been kind of bigger, The Black Dahlia from 2006. And I remember liking that one rather quite a bit. But since then, not a whole lot.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's done much in the way... Has he done... Up to this film, has he really done an actual science fiction film?
You mean before this film?
Yeah.
No, I'm not really seeing anything. Mission Impossible's as close as you get to that before this.
Yeah, I forgot about Mission Impossible. I'm thinking, well, discounting Phantom of the Paradise, if you want to call that sci-fi. It's got its... it's more horror-ish, I guess.
Yeah, and then after you get things like Femme Fatale, The Black Dahlia. There's one I've heard here but never seen called Domino.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it doesn't get a very high rating either. So
right. All right. Well, yeah. As we said, you're done with your reviews.
Yes.
Yeah? All right.
I think we've trashed the film enough.
Yeah, I think so. Which it's a shame. I don't want to sit there and completely trash it. Like I said, it's a watchable film, but just don't expect great things from it.
No, I mean, part of it also suffers from just being a little dated. Like the alien at the end during the alien's PowerPoint presentation, it looks terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the goofy tear streaming down harkens back to the old Native American along the roadside crying over trash.
Yes.
So it just didn't hit quite right.
All right, well then that will do it for Mission to Mars. 2 weeks we'll be talking Red Planet, also from the year 2000. Thank you all for listening to the Time Shifters podcast. If you have any feedback or thoughts on anything we discussed on this episode, please send us an email or comment on any of our social media posts. Follow the link in the show notes or visit timeshifterspodcast.com. If you can spare some time, and wherever you are listening to the show allows you to leave a rating and or review, please do so. That does help more people find the show. If you can spare some change, visit Ko-fi.com/TSPOE podcasts and donate it. This will help with the costs of web hosting and episode production. Our episodes will always be free to you, but any help you can offer is greatly appreciated. If you want something more tangible to show for your money, then please consider shopping at TeePublic by using our affiliate link. Again, just follow the link in the show notes or on the website. It won't cost you any extra, and anything and everything you purchase will help us as well as support many independent artists. That is going to do it for this episode. We will talk to you next time. Bye.
See ya.